Texas and Arkansas, a renewal of a rivalry now in the SEC, a big game coming up this Saturday at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. Central Time. Texas travels to Fayetteville, Arkansas, where they did not have a good time 2 years ago, Nathan. Texas coming to Arkansas, a big game, a battle against two SEC teams, one of them trying to get bowl eligibility this week with the Arkansas Razorbacks sitting at 5-4, and then one right into the SEC championship / playoff hunt with the Texas Longhorns, trying to get back in their groove, continue their momentum of last week's big win over the Florida Gators. This game is so intriguing to me because this Arkansas team has had its up and downs all year. I think they're really, really talented, especially on the offensive end. And now they get a Texas team at home. Wish this was a night game because, man, this would be so much fun as a night game. But they get a Texas team at home who, yes, they struggled at times against Georgia and ended up losing that game. But also, I don't feel like Texas has been tested enough, especially on the road this season. And going into I'm not going to say a crazy environment of Fayetteville, but definitely one that's going to be really ruckus when they welcome the Texas Longhorns back into town. Nathan, what are you feeling about this game? How excited are you for this one in Fayetteville on Saturday?
Yeah, I think this is a very underrated game. I know this weekend's slate of games isn't really juicy, but this one I think is flying a little bit under the radar. You look at what Arkansas is. I know they're not a really polished product. They've definitely stepped up at times. Games that they should have really won, they fall short in. I feel like that continues to be the story in Fayetteville. And then you got a Texas team who I really think is untested. Their best win really coming against Vanderbilt. They lost their big matchup at home against Georgia. Didn't look great in that game. And really just in this game, I'm looking forward to seeing how both these teams compete. Texas could very well easily come in here and just take care of business and but the team – this Arkansas team out like they did to Florida last week. But I like to think that Arkansas is very hungry. I mean, it's a renewed rivalry. Like you said, there's a lot of history between these two teams, and I feel like there is reason to believe Arkansas will want to fight hard in this game to try to win it, or not to win it, just to make a statement on where they are as a program. Yeah. First of all, diving deep into what Texas has been this year, I think we look at that Michigan win when they went to Michigan earlier on the season, when it was a ranked matchup and highly anticipated. And now you kind of look back on it, it's not as great of a win given where Michigan is as a program. There were multiple different opportunities Texas has had to have signature wins, and it really hasn't worked out in their favor. And that's not all on them. That's just how the dice roll sometimes with how these teams play. But Texas has largely avoided some parts of the SEC. I would say you take a look at Georgia's schedule. They had to go to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. They had to go to Ole Miss. They had to go to Kentucky. A lot of huge road. I mean, they had to go to Texas. A lot of huge road games. And I feel like on the flip side of that, you have Texas, who has largely avoided some of these bigger matchups against teams who typically would give them a good fight. And if I would be sitting here if Texas would have won against Georgia and saying a completely different thing, just because of how Georgia is. But largely, I feel Texas is untested, and they were tested in. They didn't do so hot. That will loom largely until I see them beat a really competitive team, and that might not even happen until Texas A&M. It's one of the things where I wish Texas would have fought a little bit harder against Georgia. It'd be easy to say this game's a nothing burger, but it's not. And then you look at Arkansas and where they are. They have a few good wins. I would say the win over Auburn. I know Auburn's not the greatest team this season, but I feel like on the road there, it's a hard place to play, and they came away with the win. Other games, I think the game against Mississippi State, that was good for them. But largely Taylor Green at the quarterback position, he's had some ups and downs. I think he is a great playmaker, really competitive quarterback, but he's definitely made some mistakes at times. But Arkansas is definitely really reliant on the run game. Jaquindon Jackson, he is a terrific back to watch. He played fantastic in some of the games this season, and he's really the ground and pound type running back. He's also pretty speedy, and he'll definitely give Texas a handful. But as of right now, it's kind of hard to say Texas is probably not going to win this game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So speaking on that, and you mentioned two of Arkansas's big playmakers, obviously Green and Jackson. What does Arkansas need to do in this game? What are some of the keys for Arkansas to execute on Saturday morning to be close at the end of this game, give themselves a chance to upset Texas, and maybe come away with a win on Saturday?
Yeah, I think number one would probably be to apply a lot of pressure in the backfield against Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was in a living nightmare against Georgia when they brought pressure against him. And a lot of times it wasn't even schemed blitzes. It was just guys getting able to be in the backfield and really working against that Texas offensive line, which is really, really good. Arkansas has the opportunity to do that and put a lot of pressure on Quinn Ewers, who has made mistakes in the past. Now, I'm not saying that Arkansas has the manpower for it, because I think it's going to be a very tall order. But that would be one of the big things. I think number two, you look at the running game. Arkansas has to establish a running game, really control the line of scrimmage, at least at the offensive end, and I think control the time of possession. Because when you put the game in your hands and you're the one with the ball, you're making the decisions on what's going to happen to it. If you're constantly just having to play on defense, the defense will get tired, and Texas will have an easy path to win this game. Those are two very big things. And then number three, Taylor Green has to limit the number of mistakes he makes in this game. He's got to be more reliable. Take the check down options, play safe. And it's good to take risks, but in this game, you take risks, you make mistakes. Texas will make you pay for it constantly. But those are probably the big three things for Arkansas to win this game.
Now, on the flip side, how does Texas come in here, continue their dominance like they showed last week against Florida at home, and take care of business in a game that they are projected to take care of business? We'll talk about our predictions here in a minute, but Texas is a 12.5-point favorite in this game. How does Texas come in here, cover the spread, take care of business, and move on and get closer and closer to that fun Texas A&M game?
Well, first of all, I think it's about staying in rhythm. You kind of just keep building on what you were able to do last week against Florida. Saw a lot of great things in that game. I think, first of all, you want to be able to get off the field on defense when these teams, especially Vanderbilt. I think the Vanderbilt game was a huge matchup for Texas, where Vanderbilt was able to have continued drives and convert on third and fourth down. They were able to keep Texas on the field on defense. I think that was a huge thing, to where Vanderbilt almost came through with the upset again. So if Texas is able to get off the field on third downs, on fourth downs, and really just keep Arkansas to limited possessions, they will have no problem in this game. On the flip side, you look at the offensive end. If Texas is able to control the time of possession, they're able to run the ball effectively. Quinn Ewers, again, it's not like a broken record here, but if he limits his mistakes, because he's had multiple times where he's made mistakes of his own and really put his team in a bad situation. If they're able to do that, I think they will easily take care of business. They're the more talented team at the end of the day. They will have an easier time doing it. But I'm not going to ignore the fact of where they're playing, who they're playing, and really what's happened in the past between these two teams, because that is a very important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. So just like I mentioned just a second ago, Texas is a 12.5-point favorite in this game. The over/under sitting at 57.5 in this game. I think that's a little nuts. But Nathan, kind of tell me your prediction for this game. Who wins? What's the spread a little like? Don't have to give me the exact score, but what do you have in this game? And then I'll give you my prediction. We'll get out of here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and take Arkansas to cover. I think 12.5 points is a lot for Texas. They were able to do it last week, but sometimes you can come into away game environments early on in the day, 11 a.m. kickoffs. We know how big those can be, how hard it is to just get on the ball and just get a jump on teams. So Texas could start slow. I think that is a huge possibility. I think Arkansas can also force turnovers and keep this game close and tight. But I think at the end of the day, I am going to take Texas to win. Arkansas to cover, I think that's a good play. And then I'll definitely take the under. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think both offenses will definitely struggle and make mistakes. And then that's going to lead to kind of a sloppy game. It's not going to be fun to watch, but it's going to tell us a lot about where these two teams are. And for Texas, I think this is kind of a must-win based on your schedule. So I think that's just an additive thing where they want to win as well. I mean, who doesn't want to win? But it's just an extra incentive for Texas, especially with the kind of weaker schedule they have played thus far.
Yeah. Just an interesting stat and tidbit here. Both of these teams are 6-3 this year against the spread. I think that's kind of odd. Texas covered 6 times in their 9 games. Arkansas 6-3 against the spread. So I like the pick. I like the Texas pick. I actually do. I am going to call for Texas to cover in this game because I do think Texas wins around the 14-17 mark in this game. I do think it's close early. I think Arkansas comes in, establishes a run game with Jaquindon Jackson and Taylor Green, gives Texas a little bit of a look that they might haven't seen in a while since maybe the Oklahoma game. But I do think Texas comes in, continues what they had against that Florida team a week ago, kind of just ever since that Georgia game, they have looked really good, especially on the offensive end. And I'm going to take Texas to cover. I am going with the under in this game. I think 57.5 is a lot of points for these two teams, sitting as of right now, at least. But so I'll take the under there for sure, but I'll take Texas and take Texas to cover. But that'll go ahead and wrap this edition up of Game of the Week, Arkansas versus Texas. We'll be back next week to discuss this game and talk about what happened. Thank you for watching Fan to Fan Sports.